Well, welcome to Innovations in Clinical Implementation. This is the Ovation Lab A4M podcast series that's dedicated to translating advanced longevity science into practical tools clinicians can use immediately. We're at LongevityFest live here, and we're exploring some of the most exciting areas in cellular rejuvenation and health span. My name is Jessica Carter. I'm with Ovation Lab, and this is Dr. Lexi Gonzales, my colleague also with Ovation Lab. Today we're joined by Dr. Greg Kelly. Dr. Greg Kelly is the Senior Director of Product Development at Qualia, and he's a leading voice in the science of nootropics and healthy longevity. As a naturopathic physician and author of Shape Shift, he's previously served as editor of Alternative Medicine Review and taught at the University of Bridgeport's College of Naturopathic Medicine. Thank you, Dr. Kelly, for joining us. We're so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
Very
it's
excited.
Super exciting to take this pause from the conference to get to spend time with both of you and our listeners.
Yes. Well, we'll jump right into some questions. We're very excited. This is a fun topic and one that I know a lot of clinicians have great questions about. So there's rising interest with clinicians in senolytics in general, or stem cell renewal, NAD+, those types of things. The interest is in how they're foundational tools for supporting health span. So what's driving this shift towards cellular level strategies?
I think first and foremost, the promising benefits that occurred in animals, we'll just take senolytics as an example. When I would have gone through biochemistry, you really didn't learn about senescent cells in any meaningful way. And it was really work that I think was pioneered mostly at the Buck Institute by Judith Campisi that discovered what we now call SAS factors. But basically, part of the reason senescent cells are thought of as zombie cells is because they resist dying. But the other part is because they secrete this stew of very harmful compounds into the microenvironment, and it goes systemic. And so they can kind of create stress on other cells and make them also. So Judith Campisi was the one that really did that work, called them SAS factors, but just think of it as an inflammatory stew. And what eventually bridged from there, from say like 2010 through Mayo's work, 2017, was identifying things that when you gave them orally to animals would both eliminate senescent cells and then tone down that inflammatory signaling, and then great health would be the outcome in these animals. So, instead of frailty and thinning fur and loss of muscle, they would just be much more resilient and resemble younger animals. So I know that's what captured my excitement. Like, was reading that original Mayo work and thinking like, okay, if this even slightly translates to human, this is like game changing.
Yeah, right.
So I think that NAD was kind of doing its own thing with people like, Charles Brenner, David Sinclair, doing their lab research, showing something similar, that when you did these therapies to orally boost NAD inside cells, then animals behaved as if they were younger. And so those were kind of around the same rough period. I think Sinclair published the study that captured everyone's attention in 2013. So that time frame from say 2010 through 2020 was just super exciting for the preclinical basis. And I know that people like me that would be early adopters were like, all right, well, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to start doing some of these things.
And so, one of the therapies that comes up a lot during LongevityFest is this idea of stem cell therapies. And I feel like a lot of practitioners and patients are really seeking out this type of therapy. And we're also seeing some early adopters integrate senolytics before they undergo this therapy. So can you dive into, is that something that we need to start exploring with as a clinician, doing the senolytic therapy before stem cell?
So I got an opportunity to interview Dr. Khan for our podcast, who's one of the real innovators and has clinics in Toronto, Dubai, does work in Japan, places where you can just do much more leading edge things in the US. And one of the things unsolicited in that interview on our podcast, he's like, oh yeah, I always do senolytics before I inject stem cells into my patients I work with. And the rationale is twofold. One, stem cells are subject to all the same stresses that normal cells are, right? So if we already have a pool of senescent cells secreting this stew of inflammatory things, they're going to basically cause an aged stem cell niche. And when we inject new stem cells into these humans, it's going to cause those stem cells to act more like aged stem cells, right? And so the idea is let's change the milieu a little bit before we do this so that we'll get more out of that therapy.
Makes sense.
Right, and so that the pioneers like him, I think he was the first person that I knew doing that combination. But it makes a lot of sense. And since then, I saw that they're more like theoretical articles, like this is what we should be doing, rather than ones like we've done this and this is what we've seen.
Right.
But that combination just makes so much sense physiologically. We just, as you would both note, there's so much of the inflammation going on in the people that would gravitate to doing these expensive therapies like stem cells, that we need to do something to dampen that down if we want them to get the biggest ROI from this big investment to help them make it.
Right. Well, I mean, it seems like a foreign concept. That's still a very familiar practice that we would still want patients to be in the best health that they could possibly be before getting something like surgery or a procedure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the nutrition space, I think of like always nourishing first. Before I start like removing foods or changing diet, I'm always trying to build up their just nourishment and just wellness. And it kind of reminds me of that.
And I'm always like the idea of stress, just in conceptual, right? Like stress underpins so much of things. And just like us, our cells are stressed by many of the same things, like social stress, like huge toll on our cellular health. And this way oversimplifies it, but I generally think it is like 4 doors a cell goes through when it gets stressed. Like door number 1 is like, I got this. Like I'm resilient. Like no problem. I'm gonna take this stress and I'm gonna be better for it, right? That hormesis idea. So ideally we want our stress to go through door number 1.
Yeah. Right.
Door number 2 is like, okay, this was more than I could take and there's some damage, but like it's repairable. So like, autophagy, DNA repair, cells have contingencies, right? So it wasn't ideal, but the cell's gonna, figure it out and repair. So door number 2 is not awful. Door number 3 we'll just call the senescent door, right? There's so much damage, it's unrepairable. So that's what cellular senescence is. It's unrepairable and resisting cell death. And door number 4 is so severe that maybe it's necrosis or massive apoptosis like cell death occurs, right? So door number 4 is usually unavoidable, like we don't expect that. And my goal personally, and for people I would care about, is let's do as much as we can to make sure they go through door number 1 whenever possible. And that's where something to me like NAD starts to play a role, because what NAD does is it helps cells be more resilient. And Charles Brenner, one of the pioneers of NAD research, would say specifically to metabolic types of stresses, but probably to more than that. And then once a cell becomes, let's say, goes through door number 3, then NAD is not relevant anymore. Like we don't, like, all right, that ship sailed, it went through the wrong door. What do we do to remove it, right? So that's where senolytics come in. And then senolytics, then in theory, would be removing cells. So now we need tissue homeostasis and repair rejuvenation to come in. And that's where now, like, some kind of a stem cell therapy, right? So, like, when you then craft these things together, like, oh, well, NAD would be, maybe we won't say daily, but most days, right? We want to do things to make sure our cells stay fueled with enough of that molecule. And we know from a lot of science that on its own with aging, it would go down. So we need to almost proactively do something to sustain it. Then we need to go, all right, maybe someone had chemo at a younger age. Because chemo by intention is causing a lot of cellular stress to try to drive cancer cells through cell death, the side effect is that they're creating a lot of senescent cells, right? They inflicted cellular stress. So in contexts where someone's already old, we can bank that they would have more senescent cells that is probably healthy. And often you'll see that as a clinician with lots of symptoms related to inflammation, right? Like aches and pains in joints, kind of like poor cognition, slow healing, skin. I always think of digestion, brain as kind of the first 2 early clues, and joints, by the time joints are involved or low back, then there's usually a lot of systemic inflammation. And so the senolytics become relevant to me, like very relevant to me, when that's already ongoing. So those, I think in a gardening sense, like we want to be a good gardener and go prune those away periodically.
I love that.
And then then we want to recruit then healing after. So something, whether it's infusing stem cells or giving nutritional support so that we make the most of the ones our body produces. Because what stem cell exhaustion would be the terminology of hallmarks of aging, but that hallmark came about not because they were measuring some biomarker or looking at some mechanism. It was just observation. Like older people struggle to heal things that younger people heal seamlessly. So when we're seeing, slower healing at any age, and again, we can kind of guess for most, the average population with age, they're going to be slower to heal. Then something to get more out of stem cells or to replace stem cells becomes super important. But if we do that in an inflammatory environment, we're just not going to get that. So that's the idea of the protocol. Like, let's do NAD to make sure more cells are going through door number 1 a month. Let's make sure the ones that already go through door number 3 are periodically being pruned away. And then let's follow that up with supporting rejuvenation.
I love that. That's going to stick with me and so easy to translate to patients because this concept is fairly difficult to explain to patients. And, you're investing in something that you may not see the benefit from right away, but we're really trying to give you this health span or extend your health span. So I love that analogy. Super helpful clinically.
Someone I work with is super, she's gardening is her passion. So when we were first coming out with a senolytic, I was trying to figure out, how can I make this make sense to her? If I can't succeed with her, we have a shot. And so I said, all right, imagine tomorrow you're going to go out into your garden, every single plant, vibrant green leaves. You're like, I am the world's best, fantastic gardener. I rock, right? Yeah. And now 2 weeks from now, you go out and there's, one poor plant with 3 or 4 yellow leaves. And you're like, oh, something's not great here. Did I do something to mess up the soil? Is there a pest or whatever? Nutrition, stress, the same things that affect us. And then you go out, the week after, and now that poor plant has 20 yellow leaves, right? Because what happens to a plant is yellow leaves steal nutrition from vibrant leaves, attract pests, and the root cause that caused it isn't addressed. And the reason that story is super relevant to senescent cells, as an example, is apoptosis. Do you know what that means in Greek?
Oh, in Greek?
I don't know that I do.
Don't.
We all know what it means, in medicine, right? Cellular death. But apoptosis comes from a Greek word that means falling off in the context of a fruit or leaf falling off a plant.
Wow.
Right? So, the yellow leaves are failing to fall off like they should have, right? And so what a gardener does is prune those off. So senescent cells are the equivalent of those yellowing leaves. And if someone doesn't become the gardener and prune them off, then yellow leaves beget more yellow leaves. And before you know it, that plant is going to have a short lifespan.
Wow. I'm having a lot of meta thoughts right now about just the process of how much you shed throughout life too, as you go through different phases.
We have billions of cells are turning over every day.
Yes.
And I'm sure if someone Googles this, they'll see, the average lifespan of human cells is 7 years. But that average is so unimportant. So neurons, for all practical purposes, we never renew. Maybe some parts of our brain, like hypothalamus, we created once. Muscle cells, I want to say it's 40 years, or maybe heart cells. Anyways, liver, super fast, 1 to 3 years. Muscles, super slow. Heart, somewhere in between. So there's these different rates of turnover, but cells are constantly being birthed and doing their useful life and then passing away. Except as we get older, more go through door number 3 and don't. So they take up the space that we should have reserved for the healthy, green, vibrant leaves.
Wow. So I appreciate the visual with the doors. That's helpful. I think about that. I'm a visual thinker. I process things visually. So that was useful. And I know a lot of healthcare practitioners are as well. So we've talked a little bit about protocol. So I want to make sure that I ask a question that is a huge question for me, and one that we hear from healthcare practitioners also, is around the dosing structure for the Qualia products. I know there's something unique, so I'd love for you to share that with us.
Yeah, so I'm two things. Realize that we adapt to most things. And when we do something consistently every day, exercise, what people would know, right? If we want to peak for exercise, we have to be prudent about it, do and recover from doing. And that's the case with most things physiologically. We want to do and then allow for recovery. And depending on the intensity of that doing and the nature of it, the intermittent time between it is shorter or longer to get the most benefits. But as just a core, I think, mental model that I have is, all right, do recover from doing. And like stepping back in time, when I was in my early 20s, I was a Navy officer and was like thin frame. I'm not a big person, but I would go to the gym with my bigger friends and try to do what they would do and spend 2 hours. I was probably 6 days a week. And I remember over a 6-month period, I maybe gained like a pound of muscle. And my flaw was I thought my muscles got bigger from only doing. So I wasn't allowing enough of not doing, right, for my physiology, right? And enough nutrition and other things. I mean, I was in the Navy, out at sea, so, maybe got 4 hours of sleep. So all the repair recovery things were neglected and just do, didn't get really, I was just running on the treadmill. And I think it's so easy in our world to overemphasize the doing and underappreciate the recovery from doing. And so at Qualia, that recovery from doing is baked into everything we do. Senolytics, as an example, the original Mayo work, they use the idea of hit and run dosing. Let's give a high amount of these things that can convince senescent cells to finally go through door number 4. But now let's give them a recovery window, because it's not like a hormone where you would need to do it every day to do a maintenance dose of something. It's let's convince them to change their mind just this moment in time, and then we'll revisit that. And the pruning analogy comes in again then. You would not prune a plant every day. You would kill that plant, right? You want to just be methodical. Like, let's prune it, and now we'll give that plant a time to recover and prune it again. Stem cells would be somewhat akin. Stem cells spend most of their time in a niche where they're quiescent, right? They're fundamentally sleeping. Mild metabolic activity at most, right? They're doing things to protect themselves from stress largely. And then they get activated in a healing sense when they're needed. So from a conceptual perspective from my end, it makes more sense to do something that we're going to wake up and make stem cells more active, which at Qualia means mobilize them, support their ability to migrate where they're needed, give them the nutrients they need to multiply, because the even infused stem cells, we still want to massively multiply when they get to their target and then ultimately differentiate. So we want to support that, but that doesn't need to be a daily thing. And my thought is if we tried to do that daily, we would probably, one, cause massive adaptation over time, and maybe be waking up stem cells way more than they need, like causing exhaustion instead of countering it. So in my way of thinking, almost everything I would do personally or with people I would, recommend strategies. There's always, we're going to do something, but have we thought about this not doing time interval? And with, I think these, really powerful rejuvenation strategies, that is super important. And it makes it so much easier on the patients our listeners are going to be working with. So like the Qualia Senolytic, and people always want to overcomplicate. Oh, what's the best time to do it? Or should I do it when I'm intermittent fasting or like after a prolonged fasting mimicking diet? It's like, you could. I just do it the first weekend of the month, and I literally tell everyone, just find one weekend every month, put it on your calendar. I'm going to do these Senolytic these 2 days, and now you're good. Like the rest of the month, you worry about the other things. And then the Qualia stem cell, I usually personally, again, wait a day after that and then take it the next 4. So in a week, I've done this entire rejuvenation, combo stack, and then don't have to worry about it for the next month.
Wow.
And from what I hear you saying, there's instances even where somebody may need to do it every 3 months. And it's just the variability. I appreciate that. And like the rhythm of it. I think we get so structured in how we try to make our health and wellness work for us, and just being able to follow the rhythms of your life and what your needs are. I like that. There's some beauty there.
Well, there's, I think it was from Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point, but it was definitely a Gladwell book. And the story is, okay, I think it was Yale, but it was one of the Ivy League schools. And they were trying to figure out how to make more students get a vaccine for something, and tried all these different approaches like scare factor, you name it. And what worked the best was on the pamphlet, putting a little map showing where the clinic that gave the vaccines was located on campus and the hours that it was available. And then he explained it saying, letting these students know the location of a place they probably already knew and the hours it was open, which they probably could have guessed, was the tipping point because it allowed them to fit it into their life, right? And so that's a key thing when we're working with patients, like how can we make this easy and fit it into their life? Because the truth is many of us, and I'm saying us, like the listener is me, like we'll do things that our patients probably don't have the bandwidth to do, right? So like, how can we make this as easy on them as possible? And at Qualia, that's always one of my thoughts. Like, okay, and it's why anyone I work with, what weekend are you going to do this? For me, it's the first, but just pick a weekend, and when that rolls around, this is when you do it, and then that's it. And then with stem cell, the same. We want to follow that somehow, typically within a few days, but let's just condense it all in 1 week. So now, like on my calendar, like it's the first week of every month, which was last week actually, and so I would have done that protocol.
Okay, and I know we have only a couple of minutes left, but what should patients expect to feel doing this protocol for a week? Is there anything that they may notice during the rest of the month after doing this stack?
It's a great question. And I think of it, so you mentioned duration, like for someone in their mid-30s that wanted to get ahead of the game. And I think in financial investing and compounding, I'd usually say, just do this once a quarter. You're making an investment for the future. You're probably not going to feel anything because there's nothing to feel. Like you don't have any significant yellow leaves on the, right? You just want to make sure you don't build any. For someone that's already having, let's say like osteoarthritis, so they clearly would have some degree of senescent cells contribute to that. So we would see usually within 2 cycles, a dramatic, like 50-60% decrease in symptoms. Cognition with aging usually also has a really strong inflammation component. So very commonly we would see 2 areas. One, like just a sense of overall energy, and then especially the mood bucket. So low level anxiety or depressive thoughts or ruminating, all of those kind of things we usually see drop significantly within 2 dosing cycles.
Wow. 2 weeks of 2 different months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So usually when we would do a study, it'll be like a 5-week study, and we'll measure the before and after the 5 weeks. And then for someone that has a lot going on, we've done like a more accelerated, where we'll do it twice a month just to get kind of ahead of the game for at least three dosing cycles, and then slow it back down to once a month.
Well, that was like 3 protocols in that one answer. So thank you. That was super helpful.
Yeah, I feel like the clinicians have so much to take away from this. This is just, I mean, I know I did.
Yes.
Like personally and for my patients. So I appreciate that. Well, I think that's about the time we have, even though I feel like we could sit here for an hour to talk with you about this. I know for those who are here at the conference, Dr. Kelly still has a talk this afternoon at 3:00. So be sure to look him up on your app and find the location so you don't get lost and miss it. I know there's a lot going on. And then we'll have this recording available first quarter of the year. So we're excited to share that. And there are also many resources available if you go through the app here, the QR code here at the conference. Otherwise, link to the landing page when the podcast episode's released. So thank you so much, Dr. Kelly.
Oh, my
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Yes. Lovely for me. So thank you both.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Kelly, Chief Product Officer at Qualia Life Sciences. For over a decade, we've developed products to elevate human health, brain performance, and health span, all backed by human studies. We've combined 3 award-winning formulas, Qualia Stem Cell, Qualia Senolytic, and Qualia NAD+, into a simple sequential protocol designed to help your patients age better. For a limited time around this event, we're offering an additional 20% off wholesale pricing. Visit qualialife.com/A4M to learn more.